the consequences of this onslaught on Gaza, which are horrific and will be long-lasting, is not some unfortunate collateral damage that Israel has inflicted in the pursuit of Palestinian fighters, or in their words, Palestinian terrorists, but was in fact the overriding political military aim of Israel in its attack on Gaza. There is a report that is published by the Lancet. It's by two doctors who entered Gaza during the onslaught. Part of that report reads as follows, and it bears out this analysis. They say, Gaza is very densely populated. It is eerie to see that bombs used by Israel have been precision bombs. They have hit a 100% hit rate on buildings which are crowded with people. Examples are the Central Market, police stations, schools, the UN compounds used as a safety shelter from bombardment, mosques, 40 of them destroyed, and the homes of families who thought they were safe as there were no combatants in them. This pattern of consistent targeting of civilians makes one suspect that the military targets are but collateral damage, while civilians are the primary targets. This strategy, although now couched in modern military jargon, has been the strategy of the Israeli state since its formation, to use overwhelming force to attempt to destroy the Palestinian people. And as part of this strategy, Israel has always targeted symbols of international legitimacy. And they do this as a way to emphasize their invincibility and to show that the Palestinians are isolated and on their own. The editorial in the current issue of our newspaper spells out the political realities of the situation. The onslaught on Gaza was yet one more step in Zionism's attempts to destroy the Palestinian people as a nation. They have failed though. As long as the Palestinian people resist, then imperialist control of the Middle East will always be under threat. The Palestinian people's struggle has always been in the vanguard of progressive struggle in the Middle East, in the whole of the Middle East. And you can see the example and the effects it has just by looking at what's happened over the past period. When demonstrations were taking place in Egypt, in Jordan, they were targeting not just the representatives of US imperialism or British imperialism, but they were targeting their own ruling elites who are hand in glove with the attack on Palestinians, who are hand in glove with imperialism support for Israel and the Zionist project. Israel acts as a policeman for imperialism in the Middle East and further afield. How is this done? Well, Israel receives massive amounts of money pumped into it from the US. It has preferential trading agreements with Britain and the European Union. And through this, Israel has built for imperialism one of the most powerful military machines in the imperialist world. And just as importantly, it's given most of its Jewish citizens an imperialist standard of living. An imperialist standard of living in the sea of poverty that is the Middle East. Thus, it has created for imperialism a powerful counter-revolutionary social military force. Since the occupation of the West Bank in 1967, Israel has steadily increased its colonial settler activities, with now over 285,000 Jewish settlers living there. That's not counting the around 200,000 settlers that are in East Jerusalem. This activity has the purpose of destroying forever the possibility of the establishment of any viable Palestinian state. For the movement in Britain, there is even more of a responsibility, as it was British imperialism that opened the door and sponsored the initial Zionist colonialisation of Palestine. And, unsurprisingly for us, it was the British Labour Party and Labour movement that took up the cause of the Zionists. As ex-Prime Minister of Israel, Golda Meir, put it in her memoirs, one of the greatest factors helping us to overcome our initial difficulties was the fact from the very first, since 1917, we constantly received encouragement from the British Labour movement. The Balfour Declaration, although issued by the Tories, was immediately endorsed by the Labour Party and the TUC in their War Aims Memorandum adopted in December 1917. This support for Zionism has been a recurring thread throughout the history of the Labour Party, whether in government or out. The response, for instance, of the 1929 Labour government to riots in Jerusalem over the expulsion of Palestinians from their land was to issue a letter to the Zionists sent personally to Chaim Weizmann, which stated the obligation to facilitate Jewish immigration and to encourage close settlement by Jews on the land remained a positive obligation of the mandate. In 1944, at the Labour Party conference, they passed a motion, which I'll just read out. It is extraordinary. This motion passed at their conference read, "There is surely neither hope nor meaning in a Jewish national home unless we are prepared to let Jews, if they wish, enter this tiny land in such numbers as to become a majority. Here too in Palestine, there surely is a case on human grounds and to promote a stable settlement or transfer of population. Let the Arabs be encouraged to move out as the Jews move in. The Arabs have many wide territories of their own. They must not claim to exclude the Jews from this small area of Palestine, less than the size of Wales. Indeed, we should examine also the possibility of extending the present Palestinian boundaries by agreement with Egypt, Syria, or Transjordan." The person who moved this motion said, "In Palestine we should lean much more than hitherto towards the dynamic Jew, less towards the static Arab." Now that was the racism that permeated the Labour Party then, and permeates the Labour Party now. The position of the revolutionary communist group is clear. One, Israel is a racist settler, colonial expansionist state. It has no interests or intention in allowing the formation of any viable Palestinian state. Israel is a strategic, political, military asset of imperialism. It is completely tied to the imperialist war machine at all levels. The continued resistance of the Palestinian people is a continued threat to imperialist domination of the Middle East. The Palestinian struggle plays a vanguard role within the whole of the Middle East. Hamas plays a central role in that resistance. It is the duty of all communists and anti-imperialists to support in whatever way possible the struggle of the Palestinian people. In Britain, that means building a movement on the streets, supporting the Palestinian resistance, calling for a boycott of Israel, targeting all those businesses and institutions that have links with Israel. Marks and Spencer being a clear example of those links that British imperialism have with Israel. In building a movement in support of Palestine, we are by necessity building an anti-imperialist movement that is in opposition to the racist Zionist Labour Party. It will find its natural allies amongst the immigrant workers, the poor and oppressed, and those whose lives will be devastated in the escalating economic crisis of imperialism. Victory to the Palestinian resistance, isolate the racist Israeli state, end British support for Israel, boycott Israeli goods.